warm city from cold Delhi among warm people and meet all of you. We've worked and talked on phones for the last 5 years, but getting an opportunity to meet and talk is really inspiring. And I think as the last speaker today, it's a hard job. I have to keep it interesting and keep it going and hopefully contribute some new ideas to this discussion. So let me take up this hard challenge of saying something which can add value to what all the speakers have already said. So short presentation, what I'm saying is that how to change India's employability landscape. And as Shakti said and Mr. Bhutani said, I think this is not only about benefit to a student, benefit to a college, benefit to corporates. It's about benefit to the nation, because India's advantage is demographic dividend, which we have all been talking about. But till people are not employable, and till employable people are not getting jobs, we don't get benefit of that demographic dividend. And that's why I've colored this word employ and ability in two different colors. So one is the ability to perform in a job. So the first question is that does the student have the ability to perform in the job? And the second is that if he or she has the ability, does he or she land up a job? It's not always that all the people who are employable land up a job. So these are the two things I'll try to talk about. Let me talk very briefly on when we started 5 years back and first start thinking about it. So December 2007, where we were and where we are today as aspiring minds. So we got with an idea that, we need a standardized test of employability, which can tell students across the nation where do they stand with regard to their employability skills. People do not know whether they are employable or not and where the gap is, and also be able to connect employable people, the gems across the nation, to companies. So we started very humbly with 4 employees in December 2007, 4 modules, assessment modules, which were your aptitude, English, logical, quant, computer programming. 8 colleges we went and tested in Delhi NCR. I personally went and pitched to these colleges. There were 850 students who took AMCAT. There were 4 corporations which used AMCAT as a criteria to hire. Basically, friends, companies, startups like Rommel's, who gave trust to this idea that, you test students, tell us who are the gems, and we'll give them an interview opportunity. 20 odd jobs came out of it, and we had a lot of passion that we'll do something much bigger and take this idea bigger. Where are we today? We have 200 plus employees spread across the nation. 35 modules, which just doesn't have aptitude, but domain, not only computer programming, but mechanical engineering, chemical engineering, finance and accounting, life sciences, so on and so forth. Another layer with personality, behavioral assessment, and simulation-based assessment, which I'll talk about. 1,700 plus AMCAT colleges, 1 million students who have taken AMCAT, 160 plus corporations who use AMCAT today to hire, 140,000 people who have taken AMCAT to get a job, and dedicated to do a lot more. So that's where we are today. But honestly, these are a lot of numbers. When my learning in these 5 years is that we have been able to do a very, very, very little as aspiring minds. And there's a long way to go. And why I say this is that our realization in these 5 years is that we just touch the lives of students for 3 hours when they take the AMCAT test and get a feedback report. That's our interaction with them. I don't even know how many of them read that feedback report, which is a very, very detailed feedback report. And that's a question I continuously ask my team. Do they read the feedback report, right? And there's someone who's saying they don't, right? And so we are a platform provider, and we just set their life for 3 hours. So who can make the difference? So my understanding is that it's you guys who can make the difference. And I think that was one of the reasons to have this forum up here, because you are people who touch their lives from when they enter in the first year to when they come out in the 4th year. And I like to call you guys as career gurus, because it's basically guiding them, making them employable and guiding them to the right job. And you have that exposure with them. People like me can just provide a platform, but finally taking that platform and giving them guidance with it is something what you can do. And we happily come and again spend 2 hours lecturing all of you and saying, do this, do this, do this, but do very little ourselves, because actually you are the ones who are touching them. So I had 3 mantras which I thought I could share with you, that practical things which could be done. So the first is, don't start 4th, start first. It's kind of a funny statement, but let me just tell you what I mean by this. I think we all are starting fourth, when we start in our journey for employability, and this has been also talked about today, so it will not be as enigmatic. What do I mean? When we did an employability study and in an employability report, we found out that 51% engineers do not know meanings of words like absurd, generic, seize, admit. And one of the news articles said the absurdity of the word absurd because they don't know something like this. 42% engineers do not know how to divide and multiply decimal numbers. This is not complicated calculations. It's about moving the decimal point in the right way. Given we are at this stage, if we start talking about employability in the fourth year, we have already lost the battle. These skills cannot be bridged in 1 year. So you have to start first. You have to start in the first year working with your students. And that's very, very important to do. And again, it's about identifying the gap and telling them to bridge it. Honestly, I do not think you should create another slot for an employability study. They do not right now go and study what they have to study in those 5-6 periods every day. Would putting another slot help? Are they really studying those 5 subjects, 6 subjects which they have to study every day? I do not think so because I interview a lot of them. If they were studying that, we wouldn't have been sitting here and discussing this at the first point. But can you show them the mirror that, these are the skills which are needed right in the first year? And say that, boss, these are the skills needed. This is where you are. Go and bridge it. A motivated student will find means to bridge it. You can again provide them resources to bridge it, but let him be motivated and do it for himself. If he wants to earn credits for it or thing, it's not going to move. But you have to start in the first year. And as Romil was pointing out, even an encouragement, even as showing a mirror can go a long way. Yeah? Just call them when they're in the first year for 1 hour in the auditorium and lecture them. Some people tell me, don't do it in the first year, they'll get scared. I'm also okay with that idea. Probably you should do it in the second or the third semester when they've at least moved a bit ahead. On our side, what we have done is that we have tried to understand that what skills should students have on first year, second year, third year, and fourth year. So you start with something like English Logical Quant in the first year. Now, written English is very, very important to start in first year because you cannot learn written English very quickly. Spoken English, you can still get trained into 3 to 6 months, but written English is something which takes time, and you need to give the student time to learn it. So you have to tell him written English is important, yeah, this is where you are, so bridge this gap. People do not know how to type. We've ourselves interviewed people who couldn't type when we put them on a computer. So these are some things they have to pick up in the first year. Second year, again, you have to see that have they been able to bridge these things? Can they use a computer? Today, probably every job requires a computer, be it a mechanical engineering job, an electrical engineering job, so on and so forth. So every year there are different skills which they should have, and you can show them the mirror and say, this is where you are, and bridge this. Right? And third year, I'm talking about SWR, which is, again, someone who's talking about communication skills, which, again, has become so important. 4-5 years back, when we used to say about spoken English, people would only think about call centers. That is no more the case. All IT companies are wanting people who can speak English. Because even in the first 2 years, if the student will not face the client, in the third year, he'll have to start facing a client. Even if you look at a banking job, so on and so forth. So it's good if you can do a spoken English assessment somewhere in third year and tell them that you need to improve on your spoken English. We have an automated product for that, where a person has to say something in a phone, he's asked certain questions, and it automatically gives a pronunciation and fluency score. And finally, there are other behavioral competencies which you can look in the final year. Like, we all say that people hire for attitude and not aptitude. A lot of us say that. When I hire, we say, what is this attitude? What does it mean? And we've tried to create an assessment around that, which would things like integrity. Is the person ready to learn? How does he or she react to feedback? So those are different things which you can show the student a mirror. And even I'm not saying you should do these assessments. All I'm saying is that, tell them that this is what is needed and tell them early so that they have a chance. And we can really bridge it in these 4 years, which has not been bridged in the school. Second employment mantra is, this is a Hindi thing, I'm sure it has counterparts in every language. Boon boon se sagar banta hai. It is droplets of water which make an ocean. So what do I really mean with this? SMEs employ more than 60 million people today. Small and medium-sized enterprises employ more than 60 million people in India today. At least 10% of them are in IT engineering. Though, of course, I know your students also do mechanical engineering, chemical engineering, and they look for employment in these companies. An IT SME, and I can, keep my hand on my heart and say this, is happy to hire a person who can write a 20 lines correct code. If people can write programs for a very, very simple, and I think Romil will agree that, write a program to do, let's say, just run a for loop and do something, they're ready to hire people. Unfortunately, we are not able to get people who can write 20 lines of code, right? And if this basic skill, nothing complicated, and this is, by the way, in the curriculum, to everyone who thinks that curriculum has gotten outdated, a programming course is there in the curriculum in probably every stream. But this is just what we want, right? And unfortunately, when we did an employability study, we understood that only 3.25% people can write 20 lines of correct code and can get a job in an SME. So if you start focusing on these SMEs, they're creating a lot of jobs. They are resistant to US or Europe-driven recession. And they are happy to hire people who may not even speak the best of English, who may not even write the best of English, but can write code or do in a mechanical domain, do the job, right? And I can assure you that, if companies think that in your college, people can write code, there'll be companies which will be queuing to your colleges. Because they just look at the figure, 3.25%. You just don't find these people around in the country. And I think generally, and as again Romil was saying, colleges neglect SMEs, thinking that let's get the big ones, which is absolutely fine. No reason not to get the big ones. But the small ones can also add numbers and become big ones. And that's where boon boon se sagar banta hai. But for that, it's not aptitude training, but basic programming and domain skills, which is required. And if you can influence and make this happen, it will really, really help get more people jobs. Today, we work with some 130 plus SMEs. And our problem remains the same. When they reach for interviews, they're not able to write 20 lines of code. And there's no exaggeration. I'm not exaggerating at all. Again, on our side, we've put together a product which is a simulated environment where a person will be given a programming problem. And he or she has to write the code. And it tells the person how correct the code is, how efficient the code is, what kind of test cases does it pass, so on and so forth. And again, this is something which can be inculcated across second, third, fourth year. A student has a practicing platform which has problems on it, and he is sitting in his room and doing it. Again, the motivated student would do. All of us can only help the motivated students and help them get motivated. And then see where they are with their programming. That can we write a program or can we not write a program? So this is the second thought I had, that don't neglect the SMEs, and what you need for SMEs is simply writing, being able to do your domain well, and what is there already in the curriculum. No rocket science. Third is a thing which my campus team thought is not a good thing to say, but I thought I'll say it because I believe in it. Having a company at your campus is not as important as getting your students placed. So there's been this culture, and rightly so, that you call a company and say, sir, please come to my campus. Why does this not work? What is the reality? There are more than 2,500 engineering colleges. Some people say there are more than 3,000 engineering colleges. I don't know what the number is. No top company visits beyond the top 700 colleges. And will not, right? In fact, the demand is shrinking. SMEs cannot visit colleges. So the truth of the matter is that every college cannot be visited. And it's not efficient for companies to visit. Companies want to hire but need an efficient mechanism, right? So when you approach a company, you have to see how to make it convenient for the company to get their hires, right? Can you tell them that we can send students to your premise? Day before yesterday, we were having the same conclave in Delhi. And there was one person representing a company called Winsol. And he said that my problem is that I get this list of 360 students from a campus. He says, sir, this is our list. Then what do I do of this 360 people list? There's no way I can sift through these 360 resumes. I have 10 positions open. But if you could have somewhere sent me 20 people, a 20 people list, I could have said, okay, fine, send these 20 people. I'll run a process on them and do it. So can you help companies in these ways to make it more efficient for them to hire, right? And again, taking a leaf out of what is happening in the US, you guys must have heard about online education. MIT, Stanford is taking their education online. There's EDX come up, there's MITx which has come up. And again, people are thinking that they don't need to go to institutes to study. So companies do not want to always visit a campus to place. So a very practical suggestion is that when you call a company, put yourself in the shoes of the company HR and say that, how do we make this marriage work where they can have efficiency, they can interview a few students and get jobs, get placements, because they are looking for people to get placed, right? And your purpose also of placing people gets served. So my view is that you should use platforms, highlight your employable students, do some internal assessments or anything so that you can say, these are the good students, let me send them these students or give them some kind of a rating. And try to capture the long tail, which I've been trying to insist again and again, long tail of companies. So those are my 3 thoughts. I think start first, don't start fourth. Don't ignore the SMEs. Tell your people how to write code. There's a different kind of job. I'll tell you a very simple, short story of hiring a person myself. I was doing interviews for MCAs for hiring in my own software development team. And there was this one guy from a campus called GLBITM MCA who was spectacular in the interview as compared to all others. He said, "Yaar, ye hamare liye bach kaise gaya? How did we save him from Infosys, Accenture, and all these people?" So there were 2 interesting observations. One, he was 59%. हमने कहा चलो आधो के तो process से ही बाहर निकल गया होगा, right? And the second is that his spoken English was not very good. So he said, okay, fine, and he was a gem. He is still a top performer as far as writing code is concerned. Why I tell this short story is that different people match with different jobs. And there are jobs which would be there in the market to match them. And if we can get those jobs and match them to them, it would work, right? And third, make it easy for companies to hire. I understand that you have to finally put names on the brochure of your campus, and your VCs and chairmen have to put those names. But somehow I think it becomes more and more important to say that how many people got placed and what companies placed from my campus, rather than how many companies visited my campus. So if that can slowly happen, that would help. So what is the vision? Where we are today, 6 lakh plus engineering students. Some people say this is 10 lakhs. Only 1 lakh employable. When we look at IT services companies, if we look at IT product companies, this goes like 5 times lower. And all employed, I don't know. Where do we want to be? And again, this is to build on Mr. Bhutani's point that does everyone have to become an engineer? Or does everyone have to become a graduate? I don't think so. That's required. There's a very interesting paper written long back by someone called Arrow at MIT. Who got a Nobel Prize for it. He said, higher education is a filter. That was the title of the paper. And he said that higher education filters out people. It makes it easier for companies to hire because it filters out people. Only good people do higher education. But in India, everyone does higher education. And that's why we have a filtering problem. And that's why we have an aspiration problem. So I think we have done a great job in building capacity. But now we don't want more engineering students. We don't want more engineering colleges. But we want more people employable. And the employable people getting jobs. And again, when demand shrinks, the general economics principle says that people become entrepreneurs, like Romil was saying. So if there's a skilled person and he's not getting a job, he'll automatically become an entrepreneur, right? That's what, in an efficient market. So that's the economic theory behind it. So, but he has to be skilled. If he's not learned anything and he's not employable, then what kind of entrepreneurship will he also do, right? So that's my vision, and I think you guys can help us realize that vision. We can do this lip service, come here for 2 hours and talk, but really the onus is on all of you in my thoughts. Thank you.